Hey guys, it's Tyler, and welcome to another concept art stream here on the official CGS channel. So thanks for joining me today. We are going to be finishing up this little statue demo that we've been working on for the last couple sessions. We're basically at the end here. I'm going to noodle a little bit on this just to get it feeling like I want, add some more details, and then we'll conclude with a couple little extra bits of fancy polish. We'll put in a rim light on the left side there, and then we'll put in a reflection coming down into the ground. So that'll be sort of like the finishing touch, the cherry on top of the sundae, if you will. All right, so let's get started here. Hey, Marsupial, good to see you again, sir. It's been a while since I've looked at this, so let's just kind of re-immerse ourselves here in the situation. Where are my tool presets? That's the first thing to solve, right? There we are. Okay. If any of you guys are familiar with ZBrush, there's a command that I love in there that's called repeat last. You make a mark and you can tell the program to just redo the stroke you just did, so you can get really clean stuff. And I wish Photoshop had that, or maybe it does and I just don't know about it. If you guys know about that, clue me in. It's one of the things we got to be a little cautious of with making our marks clean and readable is overdraw. We don't want to say the same thing multiple times at the same set of marks, right? So that's the idea behind that. Let's do something wacky here. Sometimes I like to play around with some hue variation using some of the select features over here. Select color range. These are just actions, an action palette. Switch to button mode. And I created these by just recording the standard things you would find through the menus up here. I'm going to grab some little areas of the gray area of the statue here and play around with the hue. Just kind of tweaking those and changing those around a little bit. See if I can find something kind of interesting. Bring in some bits of warm and cool variation within that. We can play around with the opacity of that layer. And you can see it's adding a bit of life to that area, which is kind of cool. Let's do it again. We'll do select color range and let's grab another part. You don't have to be that careful about where you're grabbing. Just pick a random part and play with this fuzziness slider, and you can see here with this black and white thumbnail what it is that we're selecting, and we don't want to go for something like this because that's just the whole thing, right? We want to have some little bits here and there. And once we have the selection, we're going to duplicate the selection out so we can manipulate this on its own layer. See, now we have another little region that we can play with here. and bring in some of these. I'm liking these warm tones. These are kind of cool. So you can also play with saturation too, right? It's kind of interesting. Mute it out. Green, purple. And let's do it one more time here. So now if we put these all in a group and we turn it on and off, we can see the kind of cumulative result of those tweaks. We can see it's very subtle, but it adds a bit of complexity and interest to that material there. So we'll lock those in. I'm going to merge them together here. Actually, let's make a new history state for ourselves. And we want to be really clean about the process we've used here. Now we can merge them together. When you're adding the bounce light in, you want to make sure that this area in the shadow, despite light coming up on it, is still in a clearly darker zone value-wise than all of the lights we blocked in. And if this area isn't feeling like it's getting enough bounce light, then what you can do is, instead of brightening that area and causing an issue with the point I just made, you can intensify the darkness of the core shadow here. Going back to that concept of always thinking in two directions when you're rendering. You can make something light, or you can make everything else around it darker. Sometimes they'll kind of push it too far, just so I can visually see when it's too far, and then I'll kind of undo or reverse as a way to kind of gauge it and find the extent of my range. And even though this object isn't that large, we won't have a whole lot of atmospheric perspective going on. We can play with it subtly, and portrait artists do this all the time, where they'll paint a face and they'll have more contrast toward the front and middle in the nose and mouth area than the back and the ears and things like that. So we can do that here too, where we have a bit more contrast here in this front corner than we do in the back corners. Helps it come forward. Using contrast of value. So as I have this variation here, see that as I'm painting in, this stuff feels kind of cool, maybe bluish or at the least a gray tone. And if we sample this and we show this, we notice that we're actually still in the yellow family here, which is an immediate example of how we see color in a very relative way, right? It's purely by comparison that this feels cool next to the yellow tones that are already in place. Understanding that basic concept really will help you in adding color to your piece and using color, manipulating color and hue transition. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. That was just a soft light, bring in a bit more overall fall off of the light gradation. The really big, gradual, subtle fall offs in an image are the ones that are hard to do in the finer pass, right? You're painting with many medium or small strokes, and it's hard to sort of modulate that across the image carefully. So those bigger choices you want to be making early on. But as you render further, you may notice that you want to adjust those, maybe make those more subtle or increase them. So good to think macro still, even at the end of a piece. You know, you got to still think about things overall, and that is one way to do that, is to kind of integrate some fall off potentially. All right, let's play around with some reflection now. We're not going to make it too crazy. Just a subtle element. And let's see, I think I want to bring in more darkness here in the background. Let's give that a shot. can. Maybe we'll bring in some vignetting here on the edges, just to get your eye to focus more in the middle. And now right now, I think that the value transition between these top planes just feels like it could use some additional help. And I'd like to bring in an indication of this hood sort of coming through. I think I'll change the value of that top plane there to where it's getting more light. Sometimes it takes a bit for you to see these things. It has to be filled into a certain degree before you realize what you're missing. Oops. I have to be a little careful here. We've got these cast shadows from the crown. We don't want to mess those up. No, I haven't heard about those. Sounds interesting, though. Textured brush here, adding some grit and grime to this object. On a new layer, of course, so we can adjust how much we want this to be, how strong we want it to be. And remember, you're not going to see as much detail in the shadows, so you don't have to get quite as crazy with those areas. So what I'll use sometimes too is there's a feature in Photoshop called auto tone, and it's mainly for photo correction where it, you know, if you've got a scene where there's kind of a weird tint on the scene, or its contrast is kind of muted due to the lighting conditions, auto tone tries to sort of correct the lighting, and it does that by neutralizing the color palette and also expanding its value range. The reason I use it is just to see, you know, what would my image look like with its values expanded to the full range. It'll show me how different my sense of contrast is in the image versus, you know, what might be optimized photoreal levels of contrast, right? Not that we would necessarily need that, but it's an interesting thing to like look at and see if there's something worth tweaking about what you have. Now you'll notice that it's changing the colors quite a bit too, and you likely won't want that. At least when I take a look at this, I tend to look more at the value changes that are happening here than the color changes. Sometimes the color changes are interesting, but more oftentimes I wanted to see value changes. So how do we look at just the value changes that are happening? We can just take this layer and change its mode to luminosity. And now all it's doing is affecting the values of the piece, not the colors. And we'll see that as we expand things in the value range, as we push things closer toward white and black, they become more desaturated, right? Which is just the nature of color. As it gets more toward the extreme values, we start to lose the richness in those colors. So we can, if we wanted to use some of this expanded range, we'd have to be careful about that, right? We'd have to potentially bring in some additional vibrance to the scene. So this is a vibrance correction on top, which is bringing the colors back in. We could, of course, just use less of this value correction, right? Look at if we had this level of vibrance correction on the original image, how saturated that looks, which is actually kind of a neat look if you're going for this kind of stylized world where the colors have a kind of a stylization to them. Everything's kind of like hyper saturated. You can see this would actually give us kind of a neat result. I might use a little bit of this. Let's see. Let's pull in just a bit, and then let's turn back on the luminosity correction. Let's bring in a little bit of that as well, and then let's duplicate it again, and let's set this to normal, and actually let's set this to color and evaluate the color choices it's making too. So it's doing some interesting things, but I like the warmth of our original scenes. I think we'll keep that. Okay, and then we only want to be affecting the object, not the background for this. So I'm going to use the clipping mask here and just have that connect only to our object. And same with the vibrance here. You can see kind of a before and after, a little bit of a tweak there. And kind of like that, so we'll go with that. Oops, we had a bit of a layer gap there with our painting there. Not that we care, I'm just weird about that kind of stuff. OCD, getting rid of those funky marks on the layers they don't belong on. Okay. All right, yeah, I'm glad it's looking real. That's definitely the goal here. Let's bring in that rim light now. Let's start to add that extra light on the left side here. And the weather is so dry out here in SoCal right now. My throat is slowly dying. And the placement, the rotation of this rim light is adjustable. We can move it more toward the front if we'd like more of that rim light spilling in. Right now I'm starting with it pretty far to the back. We're just getting a very slight hint of the rim light. Put it in, we'll evaluate. We might rotate it, add a bit more depending. It's possible that I might want some of that rim light to be catching more of the face here. Or maybe not. Unclear at this time. We'll do our first round and see how it goes. You can see this is a very subtle rim light, right? We can duplicate the layer 2, make that more intense if we wanted. Okay, let's simulate. What if we rotated it and we had some rim light hitting the nose? How would that feel? Like that? No, that just doesn't feel good. So let's get rid of that. There's a little bit of light bloom happening there. And the light spilling over the edge a bit. Add some extra dimension to a couple of those spots. Okay, let's get a bit of ambient occlusion now underneath the statue, between the statue and the ground. See what that's doing there is that's anchoring that there. The AO is like the glue between all the parts in the image. It's the bass notes of the image. It's the glue between all the parts. Did I play any of the Ori games? Yeah, I played a bit of the first one. Thought it was amazing. Really beautiful game. And here I'm playing with just a bit more atmospheric perspective on the back edge of this object. Have that push further back in the image, just enhance the sort of front corner here, and increasing the contrast of the front corner compared to the back corner, so it has it pop a bit more. All right, well, I feel like this is definitely feeling pretty solid. I think we're pretty much at the end here. I'm kind of just doing a final look and see if there's any other little bits I'd like to add or tweak. Damage, texture, color. . Yeah, I think it's all pretty much locked in. So let's do our final pass here, which is just a bit of sharpening. I always like to sharpen the piece a bit. So a couple of my favorite ways to sharpen. One is using unsharp mask. The other one is using the high pass trick. So we do a filter here. They're called high pass, with the radius slider set pretty far to the right, or sorry, to the left. And it looks very odd right now, as we can see the images all gray, and we've got a hint of some of the details. What you're looking for here is the edges, and these edges are what's going to become more sharp. So we can try that, and then we set this layer to overlay. And we can see that it just kind of makes everything a bit crispier. Gives it that final layer of polish. So let's do one more auto tone here and just kind of evaluate how much we might want to push the overall range of this piece. We want to give it a bit more pop. Let's take a look. I think maybe we'll increase the contrast a bit. I think we'll go with the full normal mode on that. Yeah, just a bit of a contrast enhancement there. Let's throw on a color balance layer and just noodle for a bit. It doesn't hurt, right? It's like so easy to just throw these on at the last minute and tinker to see if it's beneficial. You may uncover something that's that you love unexpectedly. I feel like adding a bit of warmth overall to the piece is kind of interesting. That's in the mid-tones here. Let's pair it with the shadows a bit. Yeah, it's kind of nice there. I'm usually pretty cautious with the magenta green slider. I just don't get a lot of good results out of that. Typically the yellow blue slider is the one that I'm using most in this kind of a pass. You turn that on and off, we can see that I think looks nice. I like the extra bit of warmth in the scene there. All right, and we'll just give it a little signature here. And move it over here, and let's turn the opacity down so it's not just so loud. And there you have it, guys. So we have this statue piece, a look at rendering and logical layers, and hope you enjoyed as this one came together. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it, and this will also be a nice example piece for my students when I'm showing them how to approach rendering with this technique. As a wrap up, we'll kind of go through the stages that we had in this process. Let's turn all these back on here. So at the beginning, we designed our piece. This particular demo did not talk about the design process at all, really. That's its own huge subject matter, huge subject to deal with, lots of subject matter there. So we didn't go into that in this demo. This was a rendering specific demo, but we did do, of course, some initial quick designs here. Picked one, proceeded to do a clean line art pass on top of that. We filled in our shape and established the direction of our light. We introduced some of our shadows into the scene. This was the form and cast shadows coming in as one layer that I call the graphic shadows pass. We introduced the ambient occlusion and our local value color choices. We adjusted those and started to create some blending, some softening of those shadows. We brought in the material specific highlights and reflections. We added some texture and depth and detail here and started to play with bounced and reflected lights, having some of the warm tones in the cool areas and vice versa. We brought in the rim lights here, enhanced some of the colors, again, continued to render, added a bit of radiance, some lens effects, reflection in the ground, fine-tuned the atmospheric perspective on the edges, and some sharpening and color correction at the end there. And that is how we ended up at the final piece. So there's a breakdown of everything. And yeah, I think it came together pretty cool. Now, again, I don't always go through this like clean of a process every time I'm working. It just depends on how comfortable I am with the subject matter. I'll skip steps if I'm feeling really confident, if I can see something coming together quickly. And that's the idea, right? Is that we, as we're trying to understand something, we simplify it. And as we get a better grasp on it, we can shortcut things. If you feel like you're not getting the results that you want, if you're getting further in the piece and it's just not doing what you want, then consider deconstructing a bit, breaking it down, having more of an organized process. We want to make sure that we're avoiding the dreaded layer chaos, where we've got all of these layers stacking up, but we don't even realize what they're doing. In some cases, we're making a choice on layer 3 that is then being undone on layer 7 and then being redone again on layer 20, right? And it can happen so easily too. We can get carried away with it. And so it's good to try to maintain a sense of control. If we think about other professionals in other jobs and stuff, think about like a surgeon, right? Like he's doing some critical stuff on a person, some like transplants or whatever, right? Imagine the equivalent of layer chaos for a surgeon working on someone, right? Wouldn't want that to be on me, that's for sure. So, think like a surgeon when you're doing this stuff. Okay, so anyway, we're sort of 1 hour in. We've got one hour left. So what are we going to do now? Well, I don't have anything planned in terms of demo content, but I do have a piece that I've been working on that I'd like to kind of wrap up. It's part of a series of nights that I've been painting. Some of you have been following me for a while, have seen some of that stuff. In fact, one of those nights was for a previous demo that I did for CGS, the Black Night, but I've done some of the other nights as well. We've done the Blue Night, the Green Night, the Red Night, and of course the Black Night. And now we're working on the last one that I'll do in the series, which will be the White Night. And so let's take a look at that now and noodle a bit on that. Say goodbye, Mr. Statue. Goodbye, friends. Okay. So I wanted to do a bit of a spin on the White Knight. We imagined something that's very bright overall, but I thought it might be neat to play with a knight that has like a dark armor, and then his helmet has a very white element, like a porcelain mask, and that would be the iconic sort of white aspect of him. And then there's some kind of angelic feather-like shapes in his armor design that gives it sort of a white knighty quality, but it's a bit more subtle. So let's see, make sure I can see the chat here. Cool, thanks, glad you like it. So this layer on top here was a bit of auto toning just to kind of see where I'm at. This is the actual piece, and I don't like to blow those values out early, but I like to pop them on occasionally just to check where it's headed. So we'll delete that layer and keep working on the actual render here. I'm going to go ahead and pop in on the sword because we've got some work to do there to resolve those shapes. Let me reacquaint myself with my layers here. I think we have a layer on top there that isn't doing anything. This is some layers defining the cloak here that I want over the shoulders. That's a separate layer for now. Another layer for some cloth. And then this was another layer for the cloth that was shaped a bit differently. I was playing around with some different shapes. I think I was still changing my mind about what shape I liked here, because one is a bit more structured but feels a bit less natural. This one has a bit more natural flow to it, but provides a little less structure. One of the things that this particular design presents as a challenge is the complexity of the armor plating gives it this organic quality, which can sometimes also make the structure hard to read. And so if you have elements that layer on top that help orient the viewer, help us find this sort of center line of the design, that can be really, really helpful to the readability. And so the cloak draped over the shoulders is working as one of those structural aspects. So that's why I'm sort of playing around with maybe not having it be so organic in its flow there. Yeah, I think we'll go with the one that's a bit more structured. And then this white element here is going to be potentially some kind of pendant, and we'll likely play around with some other little white gems, maybe in the shield face. And of course there's one here in the sword as well. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm headed and what I'm thinking about right now. Let's name these layers here. We've got the pendant. This is the cape. And this is extra cloth. We've got our character. And let's dive into the sword here. SpongeBob stream music. This is what we call blues music, but I could see the comparison drawn there. I'm sure what you guys are immediately noticing is that this render is not structured the way the last demo was structured, because as I said before, it depends on kind of how I'm feeling about it. And here I was confident moving forward with more flattened layer. At first I started with more layers, but at this point it's further in the process and I'm working flat. as you work on a part, you'll inevitably get distracted by things nearby that you'd like to clean up, which is fine. You know, you want to kind of work up the image as a whole. You don't want to get stuck in one spot. Okay, let's get some bevel on this sword blade. What is my plan for the next stream? Well, the next stream is probably going to be a continuation of this, depending on how far we get. But I haven't thought that far ahead. I think if we get through this and we still have some streaming days left before Brandon comes back, I can maybe do something like Halloween themed, maybe some kind of like spooky, vampire, werewolf, mummy creature or something like that. I think that would be kind of fun. Something seasonal. Do I like that? I think that's working pretty well, though. Before I lose my selection there, let's inverse selection and add some dark to the other side. I heard this song on the YouTube Music Library and I immediately thought of that song, Ventura Highway. I don't know if there's anybody old enough watching the stream right now to know that song. I'm dating myself, but and in fact that song is before my time even, but really amazing song, classic. Gleaming Arts, nice. Glad you know that one. Yeah, it must be in the same like key, right? I'd have to double check, but it sounds similar enough to I think the same key, right? Using the same progression, chord progression. I used to be real into music, like I used to play and all that stuff, and then I switched over to art before I went into college, so some musical background, and I do tinker around with it at times, but I'm not I'm not pro enough to like call out what key things are in or whatever. Although there's a really awesome guy on YouTube, his name is Rick Beato, and he's got some really cool videos, cool content talking about music and analyzing it. And he's really good about breaking things down and talking about music theory and stuff, which I love that stuff. art and music, they have a lot in common. Halloween themed concept art is about as close as we'll get to celebrating Halloween this year, I think. Yeah, Halloween is gonna be a little rough this year, but I'm gonna try to be in the spirit in my own household. Definitely put on some good movies and have some tasty treats nearby. We'll just try to make the best of it. Speaking of diamonds here, you guys see that guy who found like a 9-carat diamond in a state park recently here in the U.S.? I think he was in Arkansas or something. It's freaking crazy, man. He was riding a horse down the highway. No, I did not see that. It sounds amazing, though. It sounds dangerous, but I'm sure it would have been funny to see. Sort of just getting real sloppy down here. Clean this up a bit. All right, we can bring in some cast shadow and ambient occlusion between these parts. What did you find out? People in your flat have COVID. Oh my gosh, that's not good. Well, try and stay safe out there. Got some garters outside my house. I hope you guys can't hear that. Will I do anything that looks like the Little Nightmares games? Maybe. That'd be a fun style to explore. What are these designs for? They're actually just kind of my own personal series of images. Just been doing. I like doing like series of images sometimes where one piece kind of motivates me to do the next one, and so I did a series of nights here. Let's see, I can actually open these up. If you guys haven't seen the other ones, I can briefly show them so you guys get a sense of what we're working with here. So this was the first one I did. Then I did this guy. Then I did this guy. Then we did this guy. And now we're working on the last guy here. So what I'll do is I'm gonna be releasing these as a series of little collector cards, like little art collectibles on my store Envy. So if you guys are interested in that, there'll be like a limited signs edition, and be on my store Envy page. And when I get done with all these and I get the prototypes in and make sure they feel nice, you know, good card stock, and I might go with like gilded edges on the corners or something fancy, depending on the cost there. But if you guys are interested in that stuff, just check out my Instagram, Art of Ty. I'll definitely be posting it up there when it's all done and ready to go. And then after this series, I guess I'll move on to some other series. We'll see. Maybe I'll do like thinking about doing a series of witches, maybe. It might be kind of neat. They remind me of Magic the Gathering. Cool. I love the art in that. So that's definitely, I'll take that compliment. That would actually be a cool cool franchise to work on at some point. They got a lot of amazing artists working on that thing. Maybe I'll do a bigger piece or something and send it over to them and see if it piques their interest at all, if they're interested in having some more artists help them out. Am I putting any stat info on the cards? It's funny you mentioned that, because I was thinking about, I mean, I used to collect those kind of cards too, and I was thinking about, would it be interesting to have some like stats or info on the back of the cards? That could be fun. Yeah, it could be kind of a neat thing. Maybe I should explore that idea a bit more. And I like the idea of doing a series of demons too. That could be really awesome. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe that's do some witches, maybe some demons. That all sounds cool to me. Now this song has a kind of a Daft Punk feel to it. Look at that. We have a bit of a value puzzle there, don't we? So logically, this would be dark. I think like this being behind, but I want it to read behind the character. Maybe we'll have to split the difference there. Let's see. All right, that'll work. Luckily, the eye is very perceptive to value change, so we don't have to get too crazy there. And we could maybe even have the rim light come in and hit the body form there. Might be able to get away with that. Might feel a little forced. Might call our attention to it too much. Let's see. Not hating that. Let's leave that in there for now. No, I appreciate the suggestions. It's definitely good to hear what people would be interested in. I mean, like, this is kind of a new idea, so. But that thought did occur to me, though, to have maybe some stats or info on the back. I think that could be kind of neat. Sure we get some nice texture going on in there. This little gold plate down here is feeling a little neglected. Let's bring him some love. Oh, thanks very much. It's definitely starting to come together here. Okay. Let's go cleaner with that. Doesn't need to be all modulated like that. It's just feeling sloppy. All right, I think we can merge that in. Lock it in place. So I think that's sort of a runic treatment, those like carved runes, I think is something I'm going to lean into a bit more with this the design. I think we're going to bring that into the shield and maybe in some of the other armor, but I think primarily we're going to have it on the sword and the shield. And maybe we'll bring in some of it into the cloth. We'll see. I don't want it to get too busy. I need it to be subtle. I think it's kind of a neat accent. It adds a bit of a little bit of depth to the narrative of the character, a little bit of mystery, which I think is what I'm going for with this particular knight. We have the kind of porcelain mask, and I think he wants to have a bit of a kind of a mysterious quality to him. So I think that the runes help elevate that a bit. And something that you guys should think of when you're designing your characters is think about the narrative, think about what choices you can make to have the design line up well with the narrative, and have those things sort of support each other. When the visuals are a mismatch with the narrative, that's not desirable, and you see it a lot, unfortunately. So keep that in mind. And there's a good book on character design out there by Carlo Ariano, one of my teachers, and really awesome character designer. So check his book out. Definitely recommend that if you guys want some more information about character design. But anyways, so I think we have reached the end of the stream here, right? Yeah. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. Appreciate it. Glad you enjoyed the stream, and I'll catch you guys next time with a continuation of this knight's image, and then we'll see where it goes from there. All right, you guys have a good one. I'll see you next time.